Hi, this is Marquis.
Hi, I'm Devin. We're two best friends starting our podcast, the Zenith Seekers. We've been best friends for nearly 20 years now, which sounds incredibly crazy, but here we are.
We wanted to do this podcast primarily because we want to obviously express a lot of what we've been through, and shed some light on some of the ambient, abstract things that I feel like hold so many of us back from being our true selves, shining our true lights, and really helping not just other people, but also kind of exercising ourselves and escaping mental prisons and being the fullness of ourselves, because it is a journey. It's not like we're making this podcast from a place of being at the destination per se, but having gone through enough to really be able to speak on things that cause a great shift in who we are and how we've been versus where we have been in our lives.
Right. So for this introductory or our entrance episode, um, we have the idea that we're going to talk about what is a Zenith Seeker, speaking on what that really means in a broader sense, then also in a more personal sense for each of us. And just giving a general idea of what we plan on talking about in the future of this podcast. So our it's going to be much of our just correspondence, natural correspondence of us bouncing back and forth, just speaking in our ideas, pouring our hearts out. Just a very general flow. Um, I think I'll even title this episode, or we can title this episode like "What is a Zenith Seeker?" We'll figure all that all out later. So what is a Zenith Seeker to you, Marquis? What
Well,
does it mean to be a
a
Zenith
Zenith
Seeker?
seeker is somebody who really wants to be the fullness of themselves, to reach the fullness of whatever they want to do, whatever they want to achieve in life. Um, a lot of what it means to be a Zenith seeker for us has really come from a place of being real romantics in the world. And I think the a big core of being a Zenith seeker is there's something in you that no matter what you see, no matter what you've been through, there's something in you, even on your worst days, that wants you to rise and wants you to transform, wants you to go for whatever you want to go for. Now, that doesn't change the fact that you might still have negative foundations within yourself that makes it difficult. And, you have to get those foundations together before you can really go after said zenith. But the fact that you have it in you to want to go for it anyway. And that zenith can be, anything in your life, whether it be romantically, whether it be just in terms of life being a bigger adventure for you, but
Creatively, for
yeah,
sure.
creatively, absolutely. And just being unabashed in that. I mean, for me personally, it becomes a great ferocity against all of these mental prisons and these perceptions that attempt to get in my way, when I was younger, and a great focus on just wanting to very meticulously um, transmute and transform each foundation from a place of lack and fear and confusion and disappointment, all of that, to really being full of light, full of love, full of, being present and being truthful, um, and never being secondary, which is a concept that we will go into later. Never being secondary to the world, to family, to friends, to anything, because you're not supposed to be secondary to anything.
Hmm.
When you put yourself as secondary, you hold yourself back from all that you could ever be, all that you truly are. And yet, you find moments, perhaps when you're alone and there's no one else around, where your voice is really speaking, but your voice should always speak. You should always feel the resounding power and purity of your voice singing in you, regardless of whether you're in a crowd of people, whether you're just with friends, whether you're by yourself. Um, but yeah, like I said, Zenith Seekers are people who are warriors. You know, I perceive them as warriors. I perceive them as people who are willing to not just, it's not about fighting for the light of other people, but to really fight for your own light, for you to be able to fight for your own inner child, for you to be able to fight for your own freedom within yourself, and where you really, over time, obviously, it's not like an instant thing, but over time, start to really get a strong sense of personal responsibility for your sense of self
Mhm.
and a sense of um ferocity in terms of not being taken out of yourself so that you can go after what brings your heart to that zenith, you know, what really like brings you true pure joy, true pure happiness. And it's not just an aspect of like follow your dreams, but it's the ability to even dream in the first place. You know, after time in life, we can get so bogged down. We can get so bogged down by, you know, life and bullshit and whatever. And you look out into society and it's just a bunch of noise. And it can just get noisier and noisier and noisier. And you should never be secondary to the world noise because you'll just never be able to hear yourself. You have to be primary in that.
Especially if you feel a scarcity of inspiration and what you see around, because it's a rare thing.
It
I
is.
think that in the foundations of Xena Seekers, you all feel, we all feel a deeper calling, and if even if we use other terms that are more, I guess, more well known, if it's the common mystics, or using that as a term of someone who's seeking a deeper connection and intimacy to life, to God, but God meaning in a greater sense of just the life that we exist in, the life that we are living in, greater sense of love and just brightness for yourself, and not feeling exhausted, not feeling drained, not feeling just those gaps of like the void in your consciousness, just in your day to day, and you don't know what the fuck is going on. You don't know what the hell is going on. You feel like you have no words for it. And Zen Seekers, they go into the depths, their consciousness, the depths of their heart to really dig out the muck and the grime. And it's really a process of alchemy. Another, you'll hear us really using many different terms, that in our way is talking about alchemical transformation. As Marquis will talk about, like reading his blood. He's always reading his blood, relentlessly reading the blood, reading the blood. And I'll talk about reading the blood, reading the bones, and just
Within ourselves.
yes, within ourselves, to really know what's wringing discomfort and dissatisfaction, just existentially, just as a foundation for what is keeping me from feeling existentially satisfied and just fine in your day to day.
Because it's a visceral truth. You know, you
Absolutely.
really have to look at the blood and veins of your experience. And of course, that is also to say that our experience, of course, is our experience. It's not to say anything about your experience. It is more so to perhaps inspire, uh, looking, paying more attention. I think the thing that causes people the greatest suffering within themselves is just not being aware of these ambient sort of abstract forces within them, within their mind, within their heart, within their body. They just don't understand. They haven't defined it yet. And without that definition, it can just, their life, their perspective, their impulses might just feel chaotic. And you may feel like you
They
might have any,
dissociate,
right, the
just
dissociation,
yeah.
you might like life might feel like an out of body experience. Um, it may feel like a like something like self-value is like a pipe dream for some people because it's or something that they just never even thought about because it's not something that has been cultivated in their lives, or they don't really see other people in an authentic way moving and acting and speaking and being from that. A lot of people are very performative. A lot of people are just operating from a place of the secondary and ego. Uh, and they don't even realize it. You know, it's a lot of ambient abstract things that have to be defined, and that's
Hmm.
so much of a point of what we're doing here is we just want to define um
It's about living through your true self.
yeah,
It's true
living through your true
beingness.
self,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah.
So getting into the nitty grit, I guess that's a great like foundation of the introduction.
Right.
But now we're getting into the nitty gritty of what it means personally for us. I think for me, Zenith seeking has been about feeling a true clarity in spirit and connection in spirit. Because for so long, I was just crushed by nihilism, just crushed by the feeling that we're all being thrown around in this void and all the deeper meaning that I feel within myself can create something, but the higher forces don't give a fuck. They're not gonna give a damn. They're anything that I could scream out to life just meets silence, and it's cold, it's crushing, it's disheartening, it separates you from yourself, but it's just yeah, just something like a prison that you're living in of a life. And I felt for a very long time that I've been living in a prison of like the void, trying to fight again, trying to fight against it, trying to find truth. Um, Called myself a seeker of truth for many years since like I was a teenager. Um, and I now see that's been that Zen seeker pulse within me to reach a true sense of freedom in life, like to let passion and joy flow through me in a real way and to make like great change in others, and within myself, and to like those waves to be meaningful. Purpose is very important to me, and all that goes together. Having a true sense of clarity and connection and intimacy with uh, the forces of life and universe and God in that way, um, and a connection to true love. That's another high calling, to have a true loving connection with another person who is not bogged down by the void and their own shadows, and who's reached their own sense of true freedom within themselves, and that's where true intimacy lies. But the first threshold to cross is reaching true intimacy with self and a true lasting sense of self-love and enacting that. um, and as Marquis said, you need like viciousness, you need like a force within you that is any means necessary about that to not destroy your sense of intimacy and um, compassion, but to have that for yourself, you do need to be enemy necessary to like bare your teeth, bare your fangs, to rend with your claws, to like really fight for yourself. You have to fucking fight for yourself in this world. When there's so much distractions and lack of examples or scarcity, I'll say, um, and just so much that can just strip you down and reduce you to feeling like nothing. And just for me, for a long time, I just, of course, dealing with struggles with depression, struggles with suicidal tendencies in my adolescence, and self-harm and things like that. Um, but really choosing to overcome and allowing yourself to choose yourself and know that you are a vital part of the universe, and fighting for yourself is not a it is not a I don't want to say, um I guess, sacrificing your empathy, sacrificing your heart, and what makes you a great person, what makes you a beautiful and light-filled person. Makes you a greater one because you understand the difference. You're not going to give yourself away. You're not going to waste away in, um, as I may have had the tendencies of making myself secondary to other people and their lives and their voice and their um, movement, and being a background player, and essentially a phantom. Um, yeah, and that's a general sense. But how do you feel? What has been your journey?
Well,
Towards?
to me, for me personally, being a Zenith seeker because of who I am as a person, it's always about true love. It's always been about true love. Um, It's always been about me knowing in a very sort of subconscious sense, like I knew that if I wanted to have true love in my life, I needed to climb the mountain of myself. I knew that, I just knew that naturally. Um, and due to my natural Zenith seeker nature, once I saw that that was essentially the mission, if you will, that I knew I was going to do that, despite where I was at in my life, in terms of feeling, I mean, just quite wild in so many ways. And I don't mean like that in like a necessarily like a crazy sense, but in a sense of like I was just kind of projecting my light a lot and then chasing after people because of that. But not realizing, I didn't realize that my capacity to love and to really connect and to have this deep and profound intimacy was mainly a personal thing, and that not everybody has that, and but that it was just a divine aspect of me. There's a holy aspect to being a zenith seeker. Um, you want light, you want things to be better, but I think the big mistake that we have made in our past, or the big mistake I've made in my past, has been um, projecting that onto other people. Wanting them to be bright as well. You kind of want other people to shine their lights before you're really focusing on shining your own. And gradually, over time, just really letting that go, but mainly because I'm the type of person where I don't care if it looks hard, difficult, whatever. If it's something I need to do to move forward, if it's the right thing to do for me, even if it's a negative perspective or something that I've just been holding on for a long time, and perhaps that iteration of me didn't want to necessarily let that go, I'll do it anyway because I know it's the right thing to do. Um, to me, nothing matters more than true love. But to say that means that nothing matters more than yourself because you are true love. There is no true love without you. It is about truly loving yourself. It is about truly valuing yourself and truly knowing your self-worth. But it is so much more than that because you have to learn self-love and self-worth and self-value in every vein of your being. You have to become intimate that deeply and that completely, that thoroughly. So it's been a journey to get all of those spaces that are kind of left in lack because they're unconscious, like they're just unaware of themselves, aspects of yourself that you're just not aware of. Um, Becoming truly conscious and therefore liberated, because I am becoming conscious and I am giving these spaces love and value and all these things. And self-love is not skin deep, it's bone deep. It's you have to really go into the marrow of every aspect of yourself and to really transmute it out of that space of having that out of body experience being secondary. Um, so yeah, it's been really important to just be a warrior. That's really you're a warrior of the heart. You're a warrior of your truth, you're a warrior of your voice, you're a warrior of your light. And um, even though I know that a lot of people that I've come across who I feel like are also Zenith seekers, people who also care a lot about this deep and powerful intimacy, um, even though we may be of like the same frequency, they haven't quite realized that they are primary. They haven't realized that they need to fight for their own light. They're kind of waiting for someone else to fight for their light. They're waiting for someone else to see them, waiting for someone else to value them, waiting for someone else to understand them. And then they're just kind of in this painful limbo. Maybe you feel like an alien in this world. Maybe you feel like a star child. You feel like it doesn't make sense that you're here. It doesn't make sense of what's going on. But what matters is that you realize that there's room for you in the world. You realize that you make space for yourself. You realize that
Absolutely.
you are the center of your piece, and all these things, all these responsibilities that you kind of unconsciously have been trying to put onto other people in terms of, other people giving you peace, other people giving you value, other people giving you love and whatever, you start to wake up and realize, oh no, all of this is me. All of this is all this stuff that I think the world owes me is what I actually owe myself.
Hmm.
And doing that, just being on that process has allowed me to be a lot, um, I wouldn't say less intense. I'd say that I'm still intense. I'm just not as um it's not coming from a place of being secondary. It's coming from a place of like I'm just being authentic and I'm being honest. I don't beat around the bush. I'm not, you know,
Yeah, you're calm in that.
I'm calm in that.
I remember there
I'm
was a time
yeah.
that used to piss you off, like the aspect of like I'm not going to turn down because you felt like that was like a bit of a defeat
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah. But it's like I don't need to prove anything to anybody. And that's a big thing, with like the mental prisons, and we're gonna talk about that. There's so many different types of mental prisons, and I love hearing what different type of mental prisons exist in other people because it's different for everybody. For me, um, some of them would be feeling the need to prove something, and feeling owed off the top of my mind. Those were the big things. So if I was in a romantic relationship in the past and, I'm just being very loving and giving a lot of, light and truth and all these things, but I wasn't getting that back, I'll feel owed, and that's like a mental prison. That's a tether to the past, this past person, to past situation, whatever, that I didn't need, and realizing that I just needed to give whatever that was to myself, whether I needed to just give like self-love and self-value for the fact that I'm a diamond, the fact that I'm beautiful, and all these things, even though I didn't receive that from whomever. Okay, I'll do that for myself. I'll close that void myself and stop making it the world's responsibility because I like to think that the world, I mean, as brutal as it sounds, I like to think of the world as a jungle, and we're in nature, you put a baby lamb by a bunch of wolves, they're not going to ignore it because, like, oh, we're just going to wait till you become an adult, or, oh, you had a bad day. Like, the world is going to be quite cruel and it can be quite devastating and disappointing and all kinds of things. But there's also real light in the world. And I think it's important to never forget that and to realize that you are the real light in the world. Um, you don't need other people to be this great authentic light in your life for you to be the great authentic life in your own life. So, so yeah, I think that my journey has been it's been a lot. I feel like I just summed up quite a bit. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
you
a lot.
did. I'd like to talk about common, I guess, traps. I feel like many people who feel a deeper calling or just in general, they'll fall into. For instance, one that just sort of came to mind is I guess it's one that I may have been dealing with recently as well for myself personally. Uh, when you're encountering a dark night of the soul, it can feel so loud, just
Hmm.
when the shadows become so loud and blaring in your consciousness, and you feel like you're in the pit of who you are, like the crust that you may deal with in your day to day has been unearthed, it's been uprooted, it's been, exploded for whatever reason, things going on in your life, or you just happen to be in that particular mindset that day and you sink into it. And they take that dark night as like their definition. And something I had to really lean into for myself, and I think a lot of people, is that you need to feel held in that moment. You need to feel held in your process on a deep spiritual and universal existential level, that this dark night does not define you. These shadows do not define you, and to just hear what they're saying, to let it flow, the energy flow through you,
What do you
to
mean
move
when
through
you
you.
say Dark Knight?
Like, the dark night of the soul, that's just like a common saying of like, I don't know where it was coined, I don't remember, but it's meant to be like you can have many throughout your life, but like a moment where you feel the depths of your shadows really, like, just really overwhelming you. Um, it's a really just really dark period. It's
Okay.
really like yeah, just a really dark period where you feel like oh, whether it's like a fatalism,
Yeah.
whether it's yeah, that's a huge one. Whether the Insinger's like there. Um, I think that's a big one. That sense of fatalism, in that you won't ever get over it as well. Like whatever it may be, like a sense of
Maybe you're feeling suicidal.
yeah, but like what's calling it like the deep loneliness. Um, you don't feel like you have the power to change. You just feel like the cold fatalism of whatever cycles you may be going through, pains of a past relationship, pains in, familiar expectations. It's just such a broad net, but I'm just getting to like how I think a lot of common mistake a person on that journey may make is that when they're hit with that loudness, as we both experience with when you're speaking with someone and as loud as you are, Marquis, those things will naturally come to the surface because we naturally move through people in a very deep, intimate, and like intrinsic way, and in a very like resonant way with
Right.
getting the truth of your soul to the surface. The truth of who you are comes to the surface, and then when they're hit with that, they have a tendency to just think they're just going to be that fuck up, or they're just going to be this slew of pains, and then they maybe run away in fear to deal with it, or but I think the fear is largely just thinking they can't overcome it, they can't deal with it, like it's just going to always be there because it's so loud, it's very loud.
And it's not just that it's loud, it's the fact that the truth of the matter is that those shadows have been there for a long time. The shadows have been there practically their whole lives. They've never been conscious of it. They've never
Hmm.
come across somebody who could be a proper mirror to show them all these things that they are in deep lack of. They might have a sense of self-hatred and they might not even realize that they're perhaps addicted to self-hatred, addicted to chasing external validation, all kinds of things. They don't realize it, but then when you put it in their face, they just spiral out. They kind of crash out about it, and instead of, I mean, which I understand. I do think that that's an understandable response, because it's just kind of been boiling up and it just kind of explodes. I get that, but once you see the truth is the only thing that matters. You see the truth, which means you can finally change. You cannot change when you don't see the truth. If you don't see the truth, you don't understand the truth, you don't know what's going on, you don't understand what I said earlier, the ambient abstract concepts that are puppeteering you. If you don't get that, then you will never shift, you will never change, you'll never improve. So, a healthier response is to be glad that you see something that you are not happy about. Doesn't have to go so deep into being like a self-hatred thing, but that something that you really do want to change, something that you do want to go through the process of uh doing the surgery to really cut yourself open and dig out, process, release, love, value, build, dismantle so that you can build whatever the process is. You do that for yourself. It really, like, it, rather than seeing it as like this hideous mirror, it's not. You're always beautiful, number one. You're born beautiful. The moment your heartbeat happened, you've always been beautiful the moment you came into this world. And that has nothing to do with your physicality or anything like that. You're always beautiful. That's not something that changes. Um, but you won't feel that way when you're feeling secondary, but that's, really besides the point. Um, in that moment, it's just a distorted mirror. It's a distorted, dysmorphic mirror. It's not what you really look like. And that's so much of what the journey is.
Hmm.
That Zenith seeker, by seeking Zenith, you are seeking the zenith of yourself. You're looking to master the beingness of your full reflection. You want to shine your full light into your life, into your experience, and
And in there, I want to just piggyback off that because I think truth may start small. They may not understand that because this is all they've known. They've only known the distortion, and
right.
so they're like, "Well, who am I without that?"
Yes,
And
exactly that. People who get confused and think that their distortion, their baggage, their self-hatred or whatever is their identity. That
hmm
it's like that my self-hatred is like, because someone said this to me once. They said that, my self-hatred is who I am as a human. And I was like, no, no, it's not.
what
I was like,
not?
what are you talking about? And um, you know, I think that what it really is that people just get way too used to the murmurs in their shadow. What your shadow is trying to tell you, because your shadow is beautiful, by the way. What your shadow is trying to tell you is what's wrong. It's trying to tell you where
hmm
you're sick. It's literally like the body feeling uncomfortable. You feel a pain in your knee, you feel a rumbling in your stomach, you feel a crick in your neck. That's all your shadow's doing. Your shadow's saying, "Hey, I'm broken here. Hey, I'm shattered here. Hey, I am like a bit dull pains here. Hey, I'm a bit anemic. I'm a bit emaciated. I need some nourishment. I in whatever space the shadows, and you have to go into that abstract space and find it out for yourself. But that's what's happening. Like that's all that's happening. It doesn't mean that you're ugly. It doesn't mean that, that you're
You're
just this you're
worthless.
worthless, you're this terrible person or whatever, because it's this none of this has anything to do with judgment, you know? We all know that in reality, you're just judging yourself. You're probably trying to preemptively judge yourself before someone else can judge you. Or a lot of times I see people trying to hide under the veneer of positivity. And every time I interact with someone like that, where they're trying to, act like they're a fucking namaste person,
There we go.
whatever, they're not. The shadow comes up real quick because I'm being authentic, I'm being real, and it shows that they're positive perspective, quote unquote, has just been them posturing, attempting to seem like they're deeper than they are, attempting to seem like they're brighter than they are. But it's like you don't become the bright shining sun without bleeding. You don't get there without really slotting your arm back into place. You don't get there without really cutting your leg open and doing the surgery there. Like the work you have to do on yourself is so visceral, and it can be quite painful and exhausting. But you're doing it for you. You're doing it because you're worth it, and you just take it one step at a time. You take it one battle at a time, one incision at a time. But regardless, you do it because you need to find the answer. And the answer is that you are the answer, but you don't fully understand the full definition of what that means. It's like a whole, a whole tapestry of expression just in one person's being. So yeah,
hmm
I agree that people go so long without really engaging their shadow. And then when they finally engage it, whether it happens naturally or because they came across somebody that just kind of erupted that in them, uh, they tend to kind of, like I said, crash out, kind of self-sabotage and but and that's the biggest thing with this podcast and anything period in my life is I'm not attached to the outcomes of other people. You know, what I care about for humanity is choice. That you have the choice to do better for yourself. That you have the choice to understand what what's wrong. And just like you can choose to go to the doctor or you can choose to not go to the doctor, you can choose to do home remedies. Basically, you can choose to heal or you can choose not to. You can choose to keep doing what you've been doing. You may know, hey, it's fucked up. Hey, I'm not taking care of myself. I'm giving my essence away to people and situations that is not bringing any light to me or whatever. Okay, that's your choice. You're not a Zenith seeker, but that's that's besides the point. Um, that's whatever. But if you in those moments when you choose strength, when you're fucking exhausted, when you choose light, and I'm not saying that people can't be there for you. I'm not saying you have to be alone or anything like that. It's great to have people there for you. It's great to have what I like to call road signs to self. It's great to have these things, but your journey of healing is always something you do alone. Even as me and Devin are here talking, his healing that he may be experiencing right now, he's doing alone within himself. And anything I might be doing, I'm doing alone within myself. We are a space for one another that allows each other to perhaps expedite the process, or to just have a space of reprieve while we're processing. But regardless, it's something we're always doing within ourselves. So it is a conscious choice that you have to make. No one can heal you. That's not how this works.
And I have to say that even though aloneness is paramount, aloneness is crucial to that process, to your inner work, the process of your inner work. Um, you must be connected at in your backbone as a spiritual individual to meaning all around you. That you're still connected to your true friends. You're still connected to your inspiration, to music, to art, to just walking in nature, to just all the pulses of life around you, to have something within you that is constantly receptive to that in aloneness. Like you are in a process of aloneness, but you're not lonely. There's meaning all around you that is seeking you out as you're seeking it. And um, to go back to something that you mentioned, I think that I've always like had a space of empathy for individuals that may be on their own spiritual journey and that have built up that veneer. Because I can see where that veneer of joyousness and positivity comes from. It's like you encountered something just so grave, maybe over the course of your life, maybe not just one instance, one moment,
Right.
but over the course of your life, and you're just so fed up with it, you know, you don't know what to do with it. You're so fed up with it, but you realize you're kind of like the power of your focus, the power of your intent of like, well, I I think the way to deal with this is just to kind of building that veneer, building this whole new persona on top of it, which a lot of people I think make the mistake of. Instead of knowing how to deal, like using their tools, using their alchemical tools, their inner work, tools of beingness to really deal with their shadows and keep a pulse on it. You know, I think that's another mistake of people not keeping a pulse in the shadows. Not just one big explosive event and then it's over. And this is just a nod to my researcher buddies out there, but um, if anyone's familiar with like the stages of the alchemical process, or if I even remember the names, like the nigirido is to represent that muck, like the sludge of the shadow, the undercroft, your subconscious, um, that you go into to when you cleanse all that out and then you reach a state of albedo, which is like your cleansed slate. You know, you can just see who you are in your natural beingness, your natural state. You know, there's just it's like a state of peace, but it's nothing really defining you yet, and you're able to see many elements of yourself. And then this citrinitas, I believe, is like when you're starting to pour in light and sunlight to really change that gemstone of your being, from a place of truth. Not a farce, not a farcical like this is who I want to be. No, it's I think at that point truth is nothing. Truth is paramount. Truth can be nothing but at that point if you're doing it in a very real and true way. You see the truth of yourself, you pour light and love into that, you learn how to love yourself, you learn, I think that's what that process of pouring that light in, that sunlight, finding the sheet of God and then reaching a state of rubido, and that's like that's your true self, true beingness. You've conquered life. But all that is to say, I think that is an ongoing process. Keeping a pulse on your undercroft and beings, because life is constantly moving, constantly shifting, and you move and shift with it. And don't be afraid to keep a pulse beat of it. Fuck fear, fuck doubt. Keep a pulse beat on your shadow so your light can be supported by it, supported by your depths. All of it is in unison shining. But I think many people make the mistake of like, oh, I did it, and now there's nothing to keep pulse beat on. I'm just living as that, which is in some ways true. That is part of transformation. You're transforming. You're becoming a new. Um, there's a new external perception and perspective on your beingness and how you operate in life and just how you move. But always keep a pulse beat on what's happening, what you're gathering. We are cups, we are chalices that we're moving through life and gathering energy, even the most minute, minor thing. Keep a pulse beat on that. Like what is like affecting you? What's something new coming up? Even me and Marquis now on this new venture of speaking our truth out into the world with this first episode. New things are appearing. We're keeping a pulse beat on that. For me, a lot of anxieties and things can come up of like just general things, but general anxieties come up, and I have to keep a pulse of like, why is anxiety trying to ravage me right now? Um, yeah, I just want to speak on how I think that's important to for people on a spiritual journey. Don't think it's going to just be like black and white. Now I'm over that fence. You're hopping fences, you are conquering mountains, you are going further, but always, always, always pay attention. Always pay attention to the inner work and the alchemical process of what's happening.
Yeah, I also wanted to, especially since this is like the first episode and everything, I really wanted to talk a little bit about, I know we sort of touched on it, but I guess this is really for the true lovers out there. It really is.
Hmm.
I mean, just going to be totally unabashed about that. This is for the true lovers out there, people who really, really just see how much love is everything, who really see how much how beautiful and how powerful and how transcendental it is. Like people who really like have naturally in their blood just resonated on that level and have been singing that song in their own veins, but have felt like such outliers in this world. I mean, this world that prioritizes sexual god damn it. What's the word?
Objectivity.
Yes, there we go. Um sexualizing people,
Hmm.
yeah, just do that. Um just the utter lack of intimacy because you understand that true love is so pure. You understand that true love is this pure and raw and powerful intimacy. You understand that. And then you look out into the world, and because you don't understand that in that moment you're being secondary, you're not being primary, you're being secondary. And so what you're wanting, you're projecting. You want the world to just be full of people who are also true lovers, true romantics, who understand how deep this intimacy is, how beautiful it is. And instead, you'll come across so many people in so many situations who would scream and tear at such an idea, who would just run away from it, who would sabotage it or whatever, uh, because that's just either not who they are or it's not where they're at. And either way, I really, I wanted there to just be a voice out there that talks about how, beautiful it is. Obviously, you're not alone in having that perspective, and being an outlier and feeling like you're just, that question of like, why am I here? Like, why am I dealing with this
Hmm.
bullshit? Um, I get it. I understand it. And you are not alone. You could never be. I think it's important to not let that fatalism control you and to make you think that there are not real, visceral, loud, true lovers out there who are really, really, really fucking serious about it.
You're not a foreigner here.
You're not.
You're not a
Not
foreigner
here.
here.
And but also for you to understand that it's not about me. It's not about Devin. It's not about this podcast. If you're a true lover who happens to be listening, you have to understand that it is about your blood. It's about your life. It's about your light. It's about your pulse beat. You really be having a great, powerful, divine intimacy with your own light, with who you are. That's what matters most.
Hmm.
Period. And for us, for ourselves, like you have to have that because the more you have that, the more you are primary with your light, the more you're primary as a true romantic. Number one, you won't internalize. Because I always say, don't project, don't internalize, and don't expect. And if you go into your shadow and you see parts of yourself that are projecting and internalizing, first of all, that is a huge foundation as to why you might be in a lot of existential pain. But outside of that, you need to stop that because the more you clear that up and the more you start taking responsibility for who you really are, the less you care. Who like look, I've seen so many people who get so upset and I've gotten upset myself, but I've seen so many people who get upset um because of I don't know, OnlyFans culture and just like all of this, like I said, this over sexualized nonsense. And it feels like they internalize it as if intimacy is being mutilated, as if the beauty and divinity of the body and true romantic connection is being sullied. But the bigger issue is that you're internalizing it. You know, you're internalizing things that have nothing to do with you.
I think it's also important to mention the unconscious aspect of it.
It is unconscious, yeah.
And I think 90% of, um, speaking personally myself as a homosexual man, 90% of like the homosexual culture is, I think, searching for that sense of intimacy that they don't think is real. You know, I've heard that from romantic prospects in the past. Like, I didn't know guys like you existed because they don't think it's a real possibility, and so they even become secondary to the culture. Like, yeah, non-monogamous, while secretly wanting like a deep, intimate connection. You know, they want something real and pure. Um, but they get lost in the culture. They get lost in the sexualized culture while just hoping to bumble across someone who's they can have some semblance of those values with. But it's typically just very sad and not really getting into that, but to speak on the unconscious aspect of even as true lovers, you know there's something in you screaming and something just pure and bright and feels so separate from the world. And that's something I
That is
largely
beautiful.
dealt with.
Yeah.
It's
It's
beautiful beyond
beautiful. Yeah.
measure.
And of course, it doesn't matter whether you're, gay or straight or anything
Of
like that. None
course.
of that
Of
shit
course.
matters. It is really just about you being a really true romantic and, of course, being a Zenith seeker.
And then I feel like that unconscious, true loving light within can start to a term I've recently started using for you know, aspects of my love that still feel like a dream object. It feels like a fancy. It feels like somewhere separate, just on the edge of the universe. And you're kind of going through the motions of life just without even putting words to that. I say unconscious because you haven't really put words or definition to it yet. It's just something you've known about yourself instinctively since you were a child, perhaps. And it's something that's been in the back of your consciousness, the back of your heart, and you've known it's there, but over time you just start to pick up on these attitudes of the world or just like the lack of a mirror, the lack of a resonance in the world, and you go into the motions of fitting this role or identity, to feel like you fit in, but you really don't, and you're always feeling a sense of division, of separation,
Yeah. I mean, you're
and
waiting for the external,
to validate and to give that, yeah,
right,
give that purpose, give
to
it
help you
reason.
make you feel like you make sense.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
like and that's totally understandable, especially when you think about children. I mean, anybody, whether you're a true lover or not, whatever, but anybody for whatever reason, like they look out and they'll like, hey, do I make sense? Does this make sense? How I feel? What's going on? Now, of course, there could be a yes or no to that, but it's almost like without that resonance, without that mirror, you can't even see what's true and what's false about you. And instead, you just see so much emptiness in the world and so many people going through the motions. When you're a child, you think that all these adults know what they're doing, but then you get older and
You're
you
like, no
realize that
one knows
they're
what the fuck
a
they're
bunch
doing.
of fucking man children and woman children, and they have
You don't know
no
what's
idea what the
going
fuck
on.
they're doing. They don't know who they are. They're just going from moment to moment and they're not ever taking stock. They're never sitting back. And then oftentimes, even if you happen to come across someone and maybe get them to a point where they're actually taking stock, they usually just become resigned from that. Like they don't want to go that deep. They don't want to see
Mm,
what's going on there. They don't want to whatever, and that's their choice. As I said, I'm not attached to the outcome of what people choose. Either you choose Zenith, either you choose what is the best for yourself, and you're completely severe and serious and thorough about that, or you're not. No one should fight harder for you than you fight for yourself. But I understand that we all start somewhere, and getting to that point of being a true warrior for yourself is something that you build into. It's like building muscle mass. You're not a bodybuilder the next day. It takes time, but yeah, it mattered to me say that like at the core of this is about being a true lover. This is about being a holy, loud song, for your heart, for your like your beautiful, powerful heart, for your inner child, for your truth, and perhaps helping you realize that you were primary. I don't care what your parents said to you. I don't care what your ex-boyfriend or your ex-girlfriend said. I don't care what happened. You're not secondary to what happened. You're primary in the face of the world. You're primary in the face of everything and everybody. And that is what it means to truly choose yourself. And the more you do that, the more you have that meditation of being primary in every situation, taking that responsibility for who you are and how you feel and what's going on, you know, the better you'll feel. I mean, this is about peace. This is about, you know, um, letting go of the screaming void that just sometimes it just make you so depressed you just want to fucking lay down and not do anything else. Even if there was something you had to do, even if there's, something you needed to do, you just can't right now. I'm sure plenty of people understand that feeling of just like I just can't right now. Um, yeah, but loneliness and fear and doubt, they're all illusions. They're illusions, illusions of smallness, illusions. All things to keep you puppeteered, all things to keep you forgetting just how titanic you are, for keep you from remembering the power of your freedom. The full boldness of your beingness, all the things you want to do. Some people who fantasize about wearing interesting outfits or traveling or something like that, their mental prisons hold them back from really doing so many things that they truly want to do. And it's like you're broken. Just period. You're like there are things within you that are broken. No, you should, in my opinion, you should not just be running out there and just trying to do it anyway. uh you need to lay down, not literally but figuratively. You need to lay down and dig into yourself and really heal by any means necessary. You need to find the truth within yourself. You need to find that clarity. um and you need to keep listening to your light and stick to your values, because sometimes you'll feel so low that you can't even, like, I've had this experience where I felt so low many years ago that I couldn't even feel my values. I couldn't even, I
Absolutely.
wasn't nowhere near was I tapped into my true values like at all. But I remembered them. I knew what they were. And so despite that, I continued to fight for my true values because I knew what they were. And eventually, once I built up myself more and got myself out of whatever rut that I was in, I was able to be tapped back into it. And that's just a natural fuel source to just keep me going. Yeah, never underestimate how far you can sprint. Healing is a marathon run.
Hmm.
Don't underestimate yourself. Don't underestimate your endurance. Don't underestimate your personal power. Don't underestimate your capacity to let go, to change, to evolve. Um, don't allow what other people say to keep you in a fatalistic perspective about yourself. You're not secondary to what people have to say about you. And I don't care what people have to say about me. I don't care how people feel about me. They feel how they need to feel. Whatever. It has nothing to do. I'm not internalizing that. It's not my problem, you
Hmm.
know? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to say, and I think this is so crucial for me to mention as we're coming to a close, is it will start small, or at least your perception of what feels small within. But even the most bright seedling is the most powerful, most transformative thing that you can give your intimacy and attention to. Do not overreach. So a lot of mistakes you can make is that you may feel it and you may want to make it as big and loud and powerful as it needs to be as soon as possible. You want to, whether it's for in the interest of time or whether it's an interest of like, I don't want to lose this, but do not, whatever it may be, do not overreach. Feel the intimacy and the intensity of that small seedling within and empower it. It's like filling out limbs within yourself. And feel the intimacy that of that. Feel the waves of that. Allow yourself to really deepen that experience. Do not overreach. You know, um, perhaps with the mind. A lot of people just get overworked with like overthinking and how do I fix? How do I fix? How do I, it's just let it be in holistic unison with your mind, body, spirit.
Let yourself feel it out.
Yes,
It's a very
absolutely.
sensual
Yes.
process.
Oh, yes.
You know, it's like a spiritual sensual process.
Hmm. And it
Or
needs its
yeah.
time. It needs its time to grow. It's just like build like a tree, and whatever your analogy may be. But I feel like for me, it is like the seedling growing into a tree, but it needs its time. It needs to feel out its roots, its branches. Just do not overshoot. Um, and that is me and us, like just an important message of support. Do not feel alone. I hope this podcast and I hope these words truly reach people's spirits. Someone who, even one person who it's meaningful to, um,
Yeah, yeah.
is everything. So it's
Absolutely. You know,
absolutely everything.
whoever's supposed to hear it and everything, they will. And
Yeah.
I hope that and like we said before, it just reminds them that they're not alone. You
Hmm.
know, you're not this crazy outlier where you just don't make sense in the world. And no, no, you don't need to fucking compromise.
Absolutely
Good
don't.
fucking Lord.
Don't.
Like, holy fucking shit.
Don't compromise. Don't doubt.
Oh my
You know.
God. I cannot like I've been most aggressive towards that where it just feels like whether it's creatively, whether it's romantically or whatever, no, you do not need to fucking compromise what you really want. You want true fucking love, then that's what the fuck you go for. That's what you go for. You don't minimize that. You don't minimize what matters to you. You don't minimize your light. You don't minimize your freedom. You don't minimize your happiness. You don't minimize your joy. You don't minimize any fucking thing. You are serious about all of it. So if you find yourself attracted to people that don't fit your values at all, that means that you need to go into your shadow and fix some things
See why you're
to
attracted
get
to that, why you're
like right
magnetizing
because
that.
it's because something's broken that you are going after people that do not reverberate your light at all, dude, that do not have real true resonance, that don't speak anything real at all, and they were never going to, and that doesn't matter. That's besides the point. You're not secondary to that. I don't care how many people you see on dating apps and they're not saying anything, or even if they talk to you, that whatever. Okay, be happy that they're not wasting your time if they ghost you. You
Hmm.
know, keep it moving.
Don't get lost in the sea of not seeing your reflection. And I think that's
Exactly.
the core of what you're saying. Like, don't, because you're not seeing it, you think you need to compromise. You think you need to submit to it. And
Not
like,
at
I'm just
all.
going to try to settle and make this work.
You
And
will not
no,
not in this
it's never
house.
the answer. No. If there's anything screaming dissatisfaction, discomfort, disinterest, or you just feel a separation from self, the answer is no.
Because
And you need
think
to look
about that
deeper.
for a moment. Take a moment to really think about what if I was just completely truly fucking satisfied in my life?
Yeah.
You know, what is that? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And is that something that I want to fight for within myself? You
And if it
know?
feels like a fantasy, that's its own monster. That's all telling you
Right,
what
because
you
it's
need to.
it's not a fantasy. It
It's
is it
not.
is very, very real. There are people who value love as the highest high. They love in a way where they truly care about your highest good. They care about their own highest good. They do what's best for themselves. Because if someone isn't doing what's best for themselves, they're not doing what's best for the relationship. Okay? The reason why they say if you don't love yourself, you know, then you can't like someone you can't be in a relationship is because like self-love is the foundation that other people's love lays on. Like they can't love you and you actually fully receive it and build upon that if you are just cracked and filled with voids and you're broken and whatever.
Hmm.
So all of this work is necessary. That's why I realized when I was so much younger that I needed to climb this mountain because I knew that I wanted true love and I knew that I knew that it was about mental and emotional freedom. I don't know why I just knew it, but I just knew it. And it's true, you know, it's not about shackles. It's not about trying to entrap someone. It's not about jealousy and control and fear and all these things. None of that stuff has to do with the transcendental, holy, divine nature of real, visceral, powerful, true love. That is both all of those things and also the greatest peace and the greatest light. But
Absolutely.
anyway,
And
um,
I want to say for closing is that you you are the magnetizing force. You are the co-creator with the universe in manifesting your life. Period. You are the co-creator and you are the magnetizing resonant force that is that pulls in the truth that matches you. And
but you have to match
um
yourself first. Like you have to meet yourself before you can meet what's right for you.
exactly. But you're always in co-creation with the elements of you and the elements of the universe is creation. So know that whatever is within you, what is surging, what is screaming, what is howling is and the elements of you co-creating your life. So look at what you want to be creating. What do you want to be magnetizing in the universe, in the landscape of existence that we live in?
And I think for what I'll say as a closing thing is keep in mind that all of your perspectives are built off foundations. Whatever foundations you have in your mind are what you're going to think about. It's how you're going to react to things. People who are pessimistic have negative foundations in their mind. People who are positive have, they have, just because you're positive doesn't mean that, you're seeing clearly. Both sides can be delusional, and both sides can confuse themselves for being realist or whatever, but it's not about any of that. It's really just about the truth. And that can take a lot of dismantling of those foundations and rebuilding and dismantling and rebuilding and dismantling and rebuilding, um, until you have built yourself up to just allow your truth to flow. That is all it is. You are the answer. So allowing your truth to flow is really the only thing that matters. So that's all. Honestly, this is a good experience, and
Yeah,
I hope that
I love you.
anyone listening, oh, I love you too.
Love you, Marquis, and I love
um,
any listener out there. We love you. If this reached you deeply, there's love reaching out to you.
yeah, and I hope that you guys continue, guys, girls, whatever. I'm saying, I'm not actually
People,
saying it. Yeah,
humans,
people.
dogs,
Um,
cats.
right. I hope anyone listening is just feeling, generally, just bright and awesome, and yeah, even
Yeah,
if you're not, we're definitely at least a hand to hold, or a light
absolutely.
to sort of shine to help you remember, where to go,
So thank you all
which
for
is always
listening.
to yourself.
Thank you all for listening. Closing out. I'm Devin again.
Oh, and I'm Marky.
Till next time.